the team, and we have Isabella. She is from the Brazil chapter, and we have few people from the BYL as well. Before we start, you've started streaming it, right? Yeah. Okay. Yashika, can you please send the link? Okay. I think we're good to go. Yashika, please give us a thumbs up. Okay, that's the link.
Share the link on the chat in the chat box. Yes, it's in the chat box.
Okay, then we're good to go. Avi sir?
Yes, all good to go. Mute all other accounts. All other.
Good evening, everyone. We at BRICS CCI Young Leaders invite you to an exclusive session with Ms. Arora Akanksha, candidate for UN Secretary General. Arora Akanksha is a 34-year-old Indian-Canadian audit coordinator at the United Nations. She announced her candidacy to challenge incumbent UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres in the 2021 United Nations leadership election. She is the first woman and first millennial candidate for the position and the first known candidate to challenge an incumbent. If selected, Arora would be the youngest ever and the first female Secretary General of the United Nations in its 76-year history. Arora comes from a family of refugees. She was born in India, raised in India and Saudi Arabia, and settled in Canada. She was hired by the current Secretary General to serve on the UN's financial reforms in 2017. Prior to that, she was a manager at PricewaterhouseCoopers, Toronto. She was the youngest audit professor at the University of Toronto to the age of 28, teaching audit at master's level. She wrote audit standards for Canada and internationally. She wrote audit guides on campaign financing for elections in Canada. She publicly announced her unprecedented campaign to run for Secretary General on February 9, 2021. She is running because she believes the United Nations can fulfill its promise to the world and make the United Nations work for everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. We also have with us Mr. Ravi Mitchell, who is an entrepreneur forming an investment fund, a management and development consultancy firm, Golden Ace Ventures. As of October 2018, he has been elected the Honorable Chairman for the All India Mixed Martial Arts Association. He is the advisory board member at companies such as Suja Energy, Earth Essence, and Picture Time. As the CEO and MD of Golden Ace Ventures, he has co-founded Super Fight League, the world's first mixed martial arts format sports league, Super Boxing League, Superstar Celebrity Management LLP, Swaraj Cup, New Jersey Teamsters Football Club, and he also owns Undefeatables FC in the Roots Premier League tournament and is a player in the team as well. Sir is also the chairperson of Steering Committee BRICS CCI Young Leaders India chapter. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much, Suzanne, for that introduction. A very good morning to you, Akanksha. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much, Avi. I'm thrilled to be here. Your bio is so impressive that I feel a bit overwhelmed with all the great accomplishments you have under your belt.
Actually, I was just about the feeling is too mutual. I think I was going to say that about your bio. I'm like a tad bit right here comparatively to what you have achieved as a global citizen. Definitely, it's really kudos to you. I'm going to start this whole session by saying your achievements are something that I par to what I would look like. All the people that have inspired me in various businesses or in my career in life, I think you're my first one up for it for sure. With all your achievements. So, but the biggest, strongest point about that you have made with announcing your candidacy is that you want to challenge something which has for a very long time, even in my heart and mind, has wanted somebody needs to get out there and not just think about where we come from, but where we want to take this world ahead, right? And the platform that you have chosen to make that difference, something that is really remarkable, and all the best to you for that. So let's start today's this by please share with our audience first thing about the campaign that's going to be kicking off very soon, and what is the current specific areas that you're working on?
Absolutely. So thank you again for having me. Like I said, I'm just humbled, honored, and thrilled to be chatting with you and engaging with everyone who's part of this BRICS community. Thank you again. And I think I'll just start by saying, why am I even running for this position? I'm not guided by egoistic principles to seek a top position. I am guided by the fact that I believe in the UN I know UN is capable of doing so much great work in this world, but the UN of today is failing. There's no denying about that. Everyone in their subconscious knows it. Some of those of us who are part of the UN universe have learned to accept it as normal, and those of us who are not have so many other things to worry about that they don't care about the UN, which is like in itself a big failure, that you don't even care about this institution. So I believe that the UN of today and tomorrow should serve people. People should be at the center. So today I will be launching my vision statement, and my vision statement can be looked at a UN that caters to 4 aspects. It caters to member states, of course. We are a United Nations, so it's our job to bring nations together for collaborative decision making and to make world a better place. But our engagement with the government has just been a conference holding platform. Come and discuss items. We want a UN that allows countries to develop. And I think one thing that I'm proposing is barter. Like, do you remember back in the day, like Europe was built on barter? Like, one country said, I'm going to do a bridge here. The other said, I'll do it here. So barter in technology and ideas and people is what we need to promote in a new UN. When it comes to serving people of the world, we really need to make sure we are addressing humanitarian crises and taking them all the way through. Having gone through COVID, we know what it means to be in a lockdown. We know what it means to rely on governments to fulfill their part of the bargain. Today, we have the highest number of refugees and displaced people in the world, 85 million. They've been in lockdown situation for almost a decade with no end in sight. And we need a UN that's responsible to their needs, that gives them basic humanitarian needs of food, clothing, shelter, security, and then finds ways to depopulate those refugee camps so they can go back into society. When it comes to development today, half of the world has access to internet, and the other half is just not connected. So we need to bring universal internet and universal online education. Then the other segment is private sector and not-for-profits. And Abby, you would know this. Private sector today is not what it used to be. No longer profit is our only goal. It's purposeful profit. So in a UN of today, of tomorrow, we need to make sure private sector is a huge part of the conversation. They are a huge stakeholder in getting involved in making a difference in the world. So I want to create a platform where NGOs and private sector can come together to collaborate on solutions and to build them together. Because UN cannot pretend to be God. We can be a platform for others to come together and develop, but not to say we can do everything ourselves.
That's absolutely, you've hit the point. I like today as an entrepreneur myself, and I, always look, how do I want to reach out to the right platform where I can make a difference, at the same time offer my little bit in whatever way I can. Everyone today wants to contribute apart from physical, monetary, what do you say, donations. People want to, even share their knowledge. People want to even share what they can bring to the table in terms of tech, in terms of resources. But there is no such platform where, like, millennials like us can actually come and join hands with the UN and make a difference through the UN, where maybe our tech or maybe our resources can actually make a difference globally in certain countries and certain areas where it's required. So that's something which is definitely missing in the United Nations. I completely agree with you on that, because I've actually personally looked it up as well at times, that okay, I have a certain resource, whether it's through my energy company or whether it's through my tech platforms. What can I do? Who are the right people I need to get in front of and say that, what, at a situation like this in XYZ country, this is what I can offer and we can make a difference. That's something that, it's a great initiative that you're going to be putting out there. And, that's really amazing. I'm looking forward to that. So coming out to, more further on, your vision statement is going to be coming out later today, which I'm really looking forward to, going through. Would you like to share a few pointers out of that vision statement? That what is it that you want to take forward, and who are the people who inspired you to take up this great challenge? These are like 2 questions where I want you to actually mix your answer in it, because where you see people who have inspired you, your vision is automatically formed through that. So inspiration and a vision, I think, go hand in glove. So that's why I would like to understand, how did that form for you?
I mean, that's such a deep question, and like so relevant too, right? Because whatever you produce is inspired by what your values are and what your deep motivations are. So I'll start with my deep motivations. So when I joined the UN at the age of 30, I had no desire to seek top position. I was so happy to contribute my financial expertise in making a difference in the world. My decision to run has been influenced by what I learned while working here. Today, for every dollar the UN receives, 30 cents is used for the cause. The rest goes to bureaucracy. And when it comes to climate, which is an existential threat, the number is even half. 15 cents is used for the cause. The rest goes to talking about bureaucracy. And then I tried to change the system internally within the UN. They're so resistant to change. And I realized that, like, you know, we cannot continue like this. And of course, that decision wasn't linear, where I was like, oh, they're not listening, I should do something myself. No, I had an accident. 6 weeks of joining the UN, I got hit by a cab where I was taken to the ER. I broke my knee. I had bleeding and left side of the body. And like, you know, when you're on your deathbed, you realize that everything, all these professional trophies that you've seeked and all these other materialistic things don't matter. Like for me, what mattered was the weight of regrets, that what have I done my life doing? Like, you know, if today I died, what would my obituary read? I was a selfish person dedicated to the pursuit of happiness for myself alone. Because, you know, unlike you, like I kind of live my life with a radar like this. You know, if something wasn't in arm's length, I wouldn't like seek out. And that's shaming, but at least I realized I can't continue like this. So that's when I knew that I needed to make changes. And I, like, you know, of course, having my monologue with God at that time. And I was like, God, please help me get through this accident, and I'll dedicate to making a difference in life, in the world. God kept his promise, and I'm keeping mine. So I tried to reform UN internally, and I couldn't. And after 2 years, I you know, the system gives you a choice. They're like, either you leave or you accept things as they are. And I was like, no, how many people have you given this choice before? If something is not working, we are a generation that doesn't accept things as they are. We're like, let's change it. So I think that was my big motivation of realizing that if I don't do it, no one else will. Because Avi, within the UN universe, everyone knows the system isn't working. No one is doing anything about it. And I was like, you know what, I've got to do it. So that was one motivation. And in terms of designing the vision statement, my values as a leader are, I've always thought that no one person is the solution. No one person can lead to any progress in the world. It has to be a collective and collaborative effort. And within that, you should always expand your horizon to those beyond, you know. Like, you know, I mean, I could always pick up the phone and talk to my professors and other people. So my vision statement was an open invitation to the world to bring ideas forward. 200 experts signed up. They contributed to creating this collaborative vision statement. So I think that reflects my value, that it's a generational effort, that this is the world that we think. And the other value that inspired me was Steve Jobs' passion for simplicity. Like, you know, I've always realized that, you know, we try to complicate things and just say, oh my God, it's so complicated, you won't understand. But deep down, if you understand the UN, it's so simple. There are two UNs. There's a UN that makes decision. There's a UN that implements decision. Within the decision-making process, of course, it's flawed. There is Security Council that has veto powers. There are other elected countries that are on a rotation basis. The General Assembly passes resolutions that are voluntary. But the good thing about the decision-making process is that at least there's not just one veto power, there's 5. They can all balance each other. So within the system, the flaws are mitigated by a collaboration between the 5 or other elected members in Security Council. And then when it comes to implementation, that's where we are seeing all the big failures. We are not seeing the results. And that's where I think for me was the Steve Jobs idea of like simplicity, focus on just getting things done right instead of just talking about things. So I think that, so the vision statement is an action statement, an action on what we need to do going forward. And I think just to give you some teaser, climate, you know, Silicon, you're an entrepreneur. What do entrepreneurs do? They find a problem. They dedicate themselves to fixing it, but at the same time, they only dedicate themselves to fixing it if they know there's a market. Like, you know, if you know you won't be able to sell it, you won't be able to do anything about it, entrepreneurship will not go there. That's why Silicon Valley has these entrepreneurs that make the next best camera. And I'm just like, how many cameras do you need? Like, honestly, I thought iPhone 5 camera wasn't too bad. And so I think climate entrepreneurship is one thing that I want UN to lead with, because we need entrepreneurs in the climate field to make new products and to, like, you know, democratize that process. Instead of just having big companies do innovation, let the young do the innovation in climate. So that's something I'm very thrilled about. The other exciting thing is youth leadership. Half of the world the average age of the world is 30. UN leadership age is 62. So I want 25% of leadership position for the youth. And that will bring about all the changes we need.
Wow, that's something I'm really looking forward to. And in any way, if I could play even the smallest role or contribute something towards, you know, being part of this youth wing of the United Nations. It will be an honor and a privilege. Do keep that in mind once you are elected, because we are definitely rooting for you to, take up this post and continue to make the difference that you have been making. But as an entrepreneur, it's also, very difficult for people to, basics of the United Nations, about getting to the grassroots level. And, the United Nations, when we say being a global body, I feel does not, do enough exchange. As you actually said, the barter, the exchange between two ends of the globe is not something as a commitment that they have made towards humanity, but they aren't doing it.
Yeah. Hi, there we go.
Hello?
Yeah,
Hello?
I agree
Can you hear me, Akanksha?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yes. So, in that way, how would you, propose to take this to that grassroots level? How would you propose that? Like, the reach out, even in I'll tell you, being a sports entrepreneur, I'm going to give you an example over here. When there were people who, reached out to me from the New Jersey, football club, and they said that, an entrepreneur like you can make a difference. You've done so much with sports in India, and we would like you to, come on our board of advisory. First, I went on the board of advisory. Now I, partly co-own the team a little bit, and I'm trying my best to, try to provide the best possible, privileges to people over there sitting here in India. But the same way, the United Nations job is to do it globally, but I don't see them doing that. Look at where we are today. A country, as we used to call ourselves, so powerful, being there. Our Prime Minister has done global tours to, get things, bring the world together towards India. But right now, I'm very sadly and unfortunately being saying this as an Indian and as a global citizen, that we are not prepared. And this is the job of the United Nations. This is your job, not ours, right? Get hold of these policy makers, get them to, get things done in the right way. So what would your thoughts be, and how would you, streamline this to make this change?
Yeah, it's such a powerful question, right? Because we can all talk until cows come home, but it all boils down to how. How are you going to do this on the ground? And I think it's very clear how this has to how this has to go. So collaborations have to happen at two levels. One at the government's level and one at individual level. That includes NGOs, individuals, and private corporations. And to do that at the individual level is very simple, because individuals are not guided by government laws and regulation. They are guided by their own interest, motivation, and resources. So for those people to collaborate on the ground, the UN platform, the platform that I'm proposing I call it Quartet. So Quartet is a combination of people, private sector, civil society, United Nations to come together and build this. So that platform will allow you, Abby, to know if you're into sports, what team in South Africa can you support? Like, how can you do collaborations and player exchange and stuff like that? So an online platform of information alone will allow organizations and individuals to collaborate. You just don't know right now how many other people are like you doing sports and empowering youth through that. But once you have a one-stop shop, that's clear. The other thing is governments. And I think this is where there are two things that are very important. UN deals with federal governments only, but most of the republics in the world don't work through federal governments. It works through state governments and local governments. Let's not kid ourselves. Local are the ones responsible for providing services. State are the ones who collect taxes and disperse the funding. Federal is just at a very high regulatory level. So we need to build a relationship between financial institutions and federal and state and local governments. Instead of going the funding through a donor to UN, to federal government, by the time it's like 10 cents to $1. So we need to automate the flow of finance in a way that local can directly get funding. And once locals can get funding, it'll go to the people. So I think that's the magic sauce here, is to allow local municipalities and state governments to directly get involved.
Now I can definitely strongly say that how you've managed to inspire so many people and motivate people across the globe, your thought process and your vision, wow, kudos to it, like genuinely. You hit the nail right on the spot, like perfectly, because yes, that's where we need to start from, right from the bottom. But, just not thinking that the UN is something that is just up there. That's not where it is. It has to come all the way down the chain and, build it right back up.
Absolutely. And bottom up is the goal. Like, we're just tired of top down, that 1% benefiting in every area. So I think it's now a bottom up approach, people's approach.
So as in, very soon, where we are very confident that once you are elected, what's going to be your top 5 priority first thing? Obviously I understand the platform is one of them for sure. That's something that's a great part of your vision. Would you like to share a few more of them as well? That these are the first 5 things as a priority, top of the order.
I think I first, of course, COVID is something it's devastated so many of us. I lost my grandmother to COVID just on January this year, and in India, and I couldn't even go back for the cremation. So 3.1 million people have died, and the numbers keep going up. So I think the first priority for any leader at this point should be addressing the COVID crisis and not wasting resources anywhere else. We need to get the vaccines, we need to get them now, and we need to make sure that we can prevent the loss of life. And the legacy of COVID will stay with us. The grief, the inequality, that will stay with us forever. But I think we need to first address this as a matter of priority. The other thing is climate. In 20 years from now, Abby, we won't be talking about a new UN, we would be talking about where will we stay. Because the havoc that climate change can bring is 1,000 times more of COVID. And today, for every dollar the UN receives, 15 cents goes into nature-based solution, rest goes into talking about climate. Honestly, what's there to talk about when it comes to climate? We really need to act now. And the way to act now is to engage the youth in meaningful ways, in employment ways, giving them leadership position, engaging in climate entrepreneurs. We cannot just think of the traditional way of plant one tree there, plant one tree there. No, we have to look at the system, that the only way to address climate change is to empower locals at an individual level and at a municipality level to do what's right for their community. The third is addressing the growing refugee crisis. 85 million people, no food, clothing, shelter, guarantee they're left to fend for themselves, half of them. What choice do they have? They are either smuggled, trafficked, lured to join terrorist organization, and that is destabilizing the world. Today, terrorism is rising. It's not rising because they're recruiting people from LinkedIn. They are recruiting those people whose basic needs UN has not been able to meet, and that is a priority for us. And addressing refugee crisis just doesn't mean taking care of their basic needs, but it is to invest in depopulating refugee camps. We cannot just have a refugee camp be there forever. We need to invest in repatriation, local integration, resettlement, development. Did you know in 1980, 40 years ago, China's GDP was below all but 3 African countries. And look where China is today, without any help from the UN, and where Africa is the continent that is so amazing in resource and human capital and has received the most funding. And that is because UN's approach to development is backward. It's like top down, Abby. You give money to the top, hope it will trickle down. But this time we need a new model for development, which is universal education and internet. And I think to achieve everything, we need a UN that is relevant for the 21st century and beyond. It has technology at its root, youth as the foundation of this organization. So we need to simplify, automate, and introduce blockchain technology. Honestly, it's something that will make sure the funding goes to the right cause. It will expedite the funding, and it will make sure that we are able to address the needs of the world. I mean, I can go on and on, but you asked. I
completely agree with you on this. No, of course, yeah, and that's amazing. But Akanksha, this is my own personal view, and I feel the one other thing which I would request you that you should bring about it once you do get elected is that to get to all this vision of yours that you have and what you want to put out there. I think the biggest problem where UN is lacking, as you rightly said, all the funding that's coming is going top up, it's not reaching down there. Whether if today $1 is donated to the United Nations, 15 cents is going, you're saying, towards that climate change, but the rest of it is only going into talks. So the main thing that I think to achieve all of this and make this world a better place for all of us, I think the most important thing which I would want your view on is the transparency of the United Nations. That's something that is genuinely needed. What is your thought on that?
Avi,
and how would you bring that change?
Yeah,
making a transparent United Nations.
Yeah. I think honestly, before we even talk about the operation, let me tell you how difficult this election process has been so far. In 2016, United Nations passed a resolution 69-321 that made the Secretary General selection process a bit more open. Like previously, it was a complete closed door process. You didn't even know the candidates who applied, nothing. In 2015, they passed a resolution that was implemented for 2016 elections. So self-nomination was allowed. Now I apply for my candidacy and I am not even recognized by the UN as an official candidate. So talk about transparency, like lack of transparency, that the old guard is not even willing to give us a chance. So far in this election, I have faced prejudice and bias because of my age. Like I'm half of the age, the usual applicants. I don't have the same experience profile. I have a different experience profile. So I'm hoping through this vision statement, we will be able to demonstrate that the member states should evaluate me based on the merit of my ideas and not any other preconceived notion, and to ensure that we have a free and fair, transparent process. So I think for operations to be transparent, we need to make sure selection of leadership is transparent. Like, how is it that you have a candidate who has submitted all the documents, is playing by the rules, but is not even recognized as a candidate, which means the old guard will not make it easy for our generation to be heard. So I think one of my big asks from everyone on this call is to please take this very seriously, that an organization that preaches free and fair elections to the world is not practicing it on its own. They preach gender equality, youth inclusiveness, and are not committed to that through this candidacy. We only have one person as a candidate right now, the incumbent, and there's so many others who have applied but are not even recognized. So, when injustice or discrimination happens in the world, we all stand up, because one day it could happen to us. One day we will be discriminated, marginalized, and then there'll be no one standing up for us. And this is a UN we need to care about. So please write to your heads of state and tweet and demand that, we have a free and fair election. I be on the ballot so we can present our generation idea. And on auroraforsg.org, you can see a voting page where you can vote. But honestly, guys, I cannot tell you as our generation how the old guard treats us. Like, it's very disrespectful. And now I hope with the vision statement, you have two vision statements, mine and his. Forget my age, forget his age, and just evaluate it on its merit. And both deserve to be presented to show what is the UN that we want. So.
Wow, guys, this is really amazing. To everyone watching this, look at this. We have a candidate right over here who's not just saying that she wants to win. She definitely wants to win to make a difference, but she's saying validate everything, her vision, what difference she wants to make, and do not put the criteria that, the old guard has put forward for so many years and generations. Let's rather bring about that change. She's saying, look at her vision, at the same time, look at even the other candidate's vision, and then based on that, give your word. So I think, wow, I'm definitely going to endorse this for sure, Akanksha, in your whole way, through this journey for sure. And, before I'm going to open up the question to the rest of the people here today, I'm going to ask you, a lot of us, as I said, a lot of people on this call, and a lot of people who even in general I'm going to be sharing these links across to, a lot of youth groups that I am part of as well. I would love to know what is, since you're so much of a motivation for us, and you brought about a great inspiration today in me as well. What more would you like to share to inspire everyone further?
I think, I mean, something you said,
basic duties that you would want each one of us
yes,
to do to, play our part.
I think something that you said that I relate with as well, I get a lot of people who ask me, hey, listen, I want to work at the UN. How do I get a job? And I just ask them, why do you want to work at the UN? Let's understand the psychology a bit deeper. And I think the truth is, all of us want to be part of something bigger than us. All of us want to do our part in making a difference. And in our heads, we think UN is that part. But to be honest, that I would love for you to join me on this journey of UN and work with me when I get there. But my message to all the youth is that I really need your help. This election is not about me. This election is about our generation that has ushered the fourth revolution, the industrial revolution in the world. But when it comes to politics, we are given something called visitation rights and not participation rights. These politicians come and say, oh yeah, clap on our speeches, see from this glass window what we're doing, but they don't let us participate. Leadership positions are not open to our generation in politics. And that is what we need to really fight. So that is my message to everyone. I know we're all busy living our own lives. We have so much going on, but please, this candidacy rests on the power of our generation to speak up against the old guard. We're not saying vote for me. We're just saying listen to me. They can decide who they eventually vote for, but they cannot deny me to present my candidacy as a generation, as a woman. And that is what is at stake. So please, I know there's a lot going on, and I would not have asked this if I thought that there was a better way, if the member states would play by fair rules, but they're not. So I'm really urging you to fight for our generation, stand up for our generation, because we are the missing link why UN hasn't functioned so far. Like whatever profession we go, things have worked out. Private sector, we've totally changed them. No longer profit is the only objective, it's sustainable profit. We need to change these international organizations to function, and only we can do that if we make noise and we make it sure that we are on the ballot. So that's my message.
Wow, and that message is definitely a very powerful one, and I'm sure it's hit the spot across all the youth that is, has joined us today. And thank you so much, Akanksha, for making this time for us and for our chamber. We at BRICS CCI, as well as the Young Leaders chapters, I'm really, honestly, very privileged and honored that you took this time out. We've got people like I think I have someone from my Brazil chapter, Isabella, if she wants to ask you a question as well. What are your proposals for countries like Latin America, and what are the concerns related to this region of Latin America?
Hi, thank you so much for this question. So Latin America is a region that I think all regions are very close to my heart, but Latin America is one region I have developed a very close relationship with over the past few months. So my team for climate change came from Latin America mostly, because this is something that impacts the region so much that the biggest thing that I think that I've heard feedback from Latin America is empowering local governments to make sure they have direct access to funding from World Bank and all the other international organizations so they can implement projects. So I think a funding that is financing mechanism that's simplified, that is automated through blockchain or any other mechanism, and gives direct access to local is what would empower them. Secondly, climate entrepreneurship and youth employment ideas for climate change is something I got from Latin America. Youth unemployment is something that affects the entire world, and it's a huge opportunity. Why are we not employing these young people and actually giving them jobs to address climate change, address deforestation, address biodiversity, address cleaning of the ocean? So I think that is an idea that I got from there. And there's this 14-year-old Andreas from Colombia who gave me this idea on barter. So the barter idea between countries wasn't my idea. He was the one who said that, why do countries boil everything down to money? Why don't they barter ideas and just leave money out of the picture? Because what's valuable to one, like you can't monetize everything. And I was like, that makes sense. And he was saying that that's how societies and communities have lived all over. So that is something for Latin America. But I really hope that the automation will allow the funding to directly flow. That's the biggest issue in Latin America, is that funding is just stuck at the top mostly.
Well, there's one last question that I'm going to personally put forward, which is something very close to me, Akanksha. Being a deep sea diver myself, I always see there's so much how our oceans are abused and misused through, and we all have recently seen a great documentary on Netflix. I'm sure that even you're very well aware of it. What is you think is the most powerful role that an initiative that the UN should further push ahead towards, conserving our oceans?
I think this is such a great question, and it's about conserving oceans, and it's also about the longevity of small island states. We don't want them, like the rising sea level, to flood them that they can't even stay afloat. So I think what's important to realize is that the new UN cannot be the God. The new UN can be a platform to empower everyone else to be part of the solution. Because, if you try to say, what can the UN do, by the time they decide at like a collective elite level, it boils down, 2 years would have passed. By the time the funding flows, all the money would have gone in discussing. So I think empowering locals, like in the Pacific Islands, they would know what's best for them. All we have to do is give them the funding that's needed. So I think what's important to preserve climate is to give funding, to allow technologies to be bartered. In Middle East, Burj Al Arab, that hotel, is built by elevating sea level. Why can't that technology be given to small island states so they can elevate their sea levels to prevent flooding from happening? Desalinization is a technique that's used in Israel, right, to desalinate water and use it for drinking. That can be used in other places. So I think there's a lot of barter that needs to be happen. There's a lot of empowering the locals that need to happen, because Avi, to be honest, you don't know as much as you might be a deep diver, but the person who lives there knows exactly what's needed for the ocean right there. And that is something that we never engage with them. We never ask them. And the only people who can ask them are local municipalities, their own community.
Wow.
So empowering and giving funding to them.
Well, that's again, I would say thank you for sharing the ocean of knowledge that you have. And that's where you have my vote for sure. You're really like, I think the expanse of your own, like the ocean, your knowledge. And so that's one of the main reasons that I'm really looking forward to seeing your vision statement coming out very soon today.
Yes.
Akanksha, once again, thank you so much for taking this time out for all of us over here at the BRICS Chamber of Commerce and Industry, as well as for all our viewers over here. Guys, you know what you have to do. You know this lady is on a mission. So let's back her up for this mission. And the change will be quite vital for all of us. On that note, Akanksha, once again, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir and ma'am. Before we end this, I would request everyone to switch on their cameras so that we can take a screenshot. Thank you. Guys, please.
Akanksha, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yashika, can you take a screenshot?
I was just posing for the screenshot. I was making sure my smile is there.
Thank you so much for joining us. It was genuinely a very enriching session.
Thank you so much. So delighted, and I had such a good morning. So yes, the vision statement will be out in a few hours. I'm so thrilled to hear your feedback. And this is not the end all be all. If new ideas keep coming, email. It's like I said, we all have to make a world that serves everyone together. Thank you again.
Thank you so much.
100%, Akanksha. You
so
would be expecting a lot of emails from me for sure. Thank you so much once again, and wish you all the very best for your campaign ahead.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye.